What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Songs of Conquest, a turn-based strategy title from developer Lava Potion that combines elements of course, turn-based battles, but also various strategy elements from a variety of games that will no doubt remind people of Heroes of Might and Magic, but just recently the game is launching its 1.0 release after I took a look at it in early access roughly a year ago, and the developer offered to let me take a look at it, which I obviously took them up on. But from there, let's dive into this a little bit more. So beyond just the single player stuff, there's an incredible amount of custom content you can play, as the game comes with a map editor which allows you to make your own levels or missions, and the game even supports letting you put these out there for other people to download and try, so there's this big community around that in particular. But there's also an online mode where you can battle against other players, which is all in addition to the 3 now story campaigns. If you're not familiar with this kind of game, the story campaigns are probably where you want to start, as they will walk you through the basics, which starts with our character wandering around the sort of overworld map, collecting various resources, and eventually building a central hub to work out of. Our commanding units are known as wielders, who are all in charge of the various units in their command on the battlefield. Each wielder will have various things they can specialize in, giving both passive bonuses to the troops under their command, as well as more active support via things like spells that they can use to turn the tide. But on the overworld map, much of what we do is explore and try to conquer territory. We pick up items in the environment, some of which can be equipped on our wielder themselves, others just providing resources or passive bonuses. A little ways into the first campaign, you'll start to be able to build up your own settlement, which is where a lot of those resources are put to use. And this is relatively simple sort of strategy research style gameplay where you'll be operating out of this hub, which is going to allow you to train and produce troops while also giving you fringe benefits around that, such as accessing a research tree, which will allow you to improve various parts of this. You can also eventually recruit other wielders to help you, which will then be able to act as their sort of own separate army that you can then act independently with, though the game is divided up into rounds, meaning that all of your movement and defensive operations, so to speak, have to take place in a round, at which you will end said round and time will advance a little bit, enemies will take an action occasionally, etc. So even outside of the turn-based battles, there is the turn-based strategy portion of the game. Now on the turn-based battle portion, if you've ever played Heroes of Might and Magic, or as people on my channel would likely be more familiar with, the Crusade portion of Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, you should be pretty familiar with this, though we do see the use of a hexagonal layout here. Now at the start of battle, when you're on the overworld map and you run into an enemy, you can, if you have the appropriate scouting ability, get a feel for what kind of troops the enemy likely has, and in many cases you can withdraw without engaging them, but once the turn-based battle starts, you're pretty locked in. Now before you even get to that stage, you can choose to auto-resolve the battle, but if you don't like the outcome of that, you can choose to fight it manually instead. While the game initially gives you more basic units to play around with, which are typically humans, later into the game you can move into more fantastical things like all sorts of beasts, etc., with each of them having their own sort of approach to combat or unique abilities. For instance, some ranged units have to reload every turn, whereas archers don't really have to do that, but do keep in mind that your unit strength is based on the number of that unit that you have with you, and as your wielder levels up, you'll be able to potentially expand the amount of units that your army can hold, as well as make them stronger and stronger. Though the turn-based tactical battles beyond that are relatively straightforward. There is a zone of control mechanic, which means that if you are engaged with another unit on the battlefield, you can't just immediately pass by them because they have that zone of control. And each turn, as your units take turns, you'll also be gaining, I believe they call it essence, which will allow your wielder, or you basically, to also take actions and cast spells on the battlefield. So there's a decent amount of tactical gameplay here, but nothing quite as deep as you might see elsewhere, as these types of battles are aimed more at being quick and fun, which I do think suits the overall goal of the game a bit better. But without going into a full systems deep dive, I would say that's pretty much what you need to know about Songs of Conquest. It does feel feel pretty polished. There is a surprising amount of content, which is in no small part driven by the community side of things, who are constantly producing maps and things for other people to enjoy, in addition to the just outright multiplayer that you can jump into once you're finished with the single player campaigns. So, because of all that, I enjoyed the little bit I played of Songs of Conquest, and I think it's worth taking a look at. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it useful. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.